We are living in modern times throughout the world, and they are dominated by medieval minds, equal and man. Now a long time we've been living in modern society, but we still kept some of the ideologies and some of the beliefs that were brought to us by our ancestors. Sadly, some of these beliefs has caused conflicts into the society. One of the conflicts that has been created since a long time too is fundamentalism. Most of you will be wondering what fundamentalism is. Well, fundamentalism is a concept that is created by an individual or a group of people which takes an ideology or belief and is often taken in a literal way. My name is Alejandro Guzman, and I'm going to be talking about gender inequality created because of fundamentalism in religion beliefs and countries in the Middle East. My research question is, how has fundamentalism and religion affected women's rights in the Middle East countries in the last 20 years? And my argument is religion and fundamentalism in countries in the Middle East have negatively impacted women's sexual freedom and mental health, job opportunities, and education opportunities. In my first claim, we're going to be talking about how has fundamentalism and religion affected women's sexual freedom and affected their mental state of mind. As we can see on this graph that shows the results for cases of suicide in married women in the Middle East, we can see how 16.2% were forcibly married to their partner or husband. Sadly, due to the pressure of having a forced marriage, they took their own life. As we can see, 21.9% had a fear of some sort of their husband. 29.4% experienced their husband's violence, and due to that reason, they decided to commit suicide. And 32.5%, even though they went through all these problems, they still tried to find support in their society, but due to this fundamentalist belief and this religion and culture, they still didn't find any help. As we can see on this graph of attitude towards women's rights, we can see in dark green represented that if women should have the right to choose if she veils, and in the light green we can see if a wife must obey her husband. In Southern and Eastern Europe, we can see how most of the people think that a woman should have the right to choose if she veils. Sadly, in countries like Middle East or North Africa, we can see how most of the people think that a woman must obey her husband. My second claim is going to be about access to education. In a graph provided by Pakistan Ministry of Education, we can see that in the students of age 5 to 17, since pre-primary school, there's already a difference between boys assisting to school in comparison to girls. And we can just keep seeing how this stays due to the whole school system. Even though we have the university attendance in the Middle East, but even though there's countries that are still taking matters into this problem and trying to fix this inequality that's been created, there's still countries like Iraq or Yemen who still face a lot of discrimination and a big gender inequality. My third claim is how has fundamentalism and religion impacted the opportunity of jobs for women in the Middle East. As we can see here, MENA, or in other words, countries in the Middle East, are representing red male and blue female. As we can see, there's a difference of 78 to 24 when it comes to job opportunities. When we look down here, it says the employment rate in women in MENA region is 18% compared to 6% worldwide. Now, what are the possible solutions and their limitations? One of the solutions could be schools providing classes or campaigns against women's discrimination. Sadly, even though it could be taught and a really helpful resource, most of the households will be against it because they have already created this mentality in their culture, and most people will be against it. Another possible solution will be possible laws that could provide some sort of protection or programs that could fight against women's inequality. Sadly, even though it will be the best option and the best solution, it is almost impossible because people that are in charge in these kind of situations support the idea of these religions and these fundamentalist beliefs of how they live and their way of living. Thanks for your time.
All right, I have two questions for you. First up, how valid and reliable were the sources that you used? And then how do you know they were good?
Well, I think they were really reliable. Most of them come from sources of universities, and they're peer-reviewed sources, so I think they're pretty legit.
right, thank you. Sorry, I'm scribbling. All right, next question. As you did your research, were there any other questions that popped up? And then if so, why were those important?
Well, there is a few religions that are different in these countries, and it was interesting that some of them took it a more serious way when it comes to the women's rights. And it was interesting because even though they have different beliefs, they still all took like the same route to making it unfair for women in most of the areas.